Here's a little something you might find interesting. I'm assuming that a fair few of you are familiar with the Jungian shadow. For those who aren't, then very briefly I'll run over it. The Jungian shadow, Carl Gustav Jung, the psychoanalyst from the Freudian camp, he coined this term, the shadow, and he speculated that this shadow, the reason why I called it the shadow is because it's this dark, shadowy figure, because it's all of the attributes that we have as individuals that we like to keep in the shade, we like to keep in the dark. We don't want to accept that we have certain negative attributes to anybody, let alone ourselves. And so the shadow is the part of us that invariably is never ever addressed. And many philosophers and spiritualists and thinkers, they all know this to be absolutely true. If you want to know yourself and if you want to be free, then you have to look in yourself and you have to make many acceptances about the things like you are, all of your negative traits. Just think of every single thing that's somebody's levelled at you and you've been in denial of. They're in your shadow, mate, or missus. And so, wherever I go, people like me. I'm the sort of guy that engages very, very easily with complete strangers. Every time I go into the lift in this building, it's deathly silent. And I always say, how are you doing? Having a nice holiday? Or, you know, where are you from? And, do you live here? And whatever. Just a little bit of chit chat. And then all of a sudden there's a few smiles, there's bye. And then next time I see you, there isn't this deathly silence. But if you don't address the deathly silence, it happens every single time. Because most people, they can't overcome that. They can't loosen this, you see. They think it's inappropriate or they just don't know how to broach it. And it really is preposterous, but this is how imprisoned people are. And so if you can imagine the level of imprisonment people are when they're sitting in a waiting room at the doctor's or something like this, or when they're in a lift, if they are imprisoned, then you can very readily see that there ain't no way they're ever going to have the freedom to look at the things that they detest about themselves and the things that other people detest about them. So, the reason why I say everywhere I go people like me, because on that level, I'm not a threat. When people start to have an issue with me is when I get to know them a little bit too well for their liking. Because I'm free, then, and because I'm confident, I'm not a shrinking violet, am I? And so I can broach anybody about anything. And I'm not afraid about any of the consequences. They can't belittle me. Whatever they want to do, it's not going to have any effect on me. It's just going to reveal more about them to me, which I'm going to find interesting. And so this is invariably why I do it. I do it with friends and I do it with associates. Now, if I want to become your shadow. Hang on, Aaron, you said that the shadow is this thing that's deep inside that we're in denial of. Yes, but I'm telling you now, I can embody your shadow. Do you want to know how that comes about? Simple. Because what I do is I become the embodiment of your shadow. I become the living manifestation of it, and I confront you. And so you would never confront me, your shadow, because you don't want to go there, because you're perfect in your eyes And everybody else that holds this and that against you, they're all idiots. Yeah, that's how it is. But if I say to you, listen mate, we're sharing a house, right? You and I are the only person that's in the house, and you leave a disgusting tide mark around the bath. I go for a bath and I'm like, listen mate, I ain't cleaning the bath every time I want to go and use it. I'm cleaning the bath after I've used it. Because what I'm doing is I'm cleaning my shit so you don't have to. Yeah? And I expect you to do that for me. What shit? What shit? It weren't me. There's only you and me living in this house, mate, using that bath. And I've got this policy whereby I exercise courtesy for the people I'm living with, and every single time I will clean the facility. So when you go to it, you've got a clean bath, and a clean sink, and a clean toilet. Well, it weren't me. Well, if you think it was me, All of a sudden, what have you done? You've become his shadow. And now he's thinking, did I really leave that shit in the bath? What is it with me that leaves that shit in the bath? Why did I deny it? And all of a sudden you see what's going down. They won't want to accept it, so therefore they'll rebuke that, and you will become the enemy. Why will you become the enemy? Because you're getting too close. You've infiltrated his camp. You have breached his fort wall. And so that's when the beginning of the end occurs. I've seen it happen too many times to mention in my life. And what I have an objection about with the human being is because they are like this. And when people say to me, oh, you should be more empathic or sympathetic or compassionate, I'm going, I'd love to be. I really would. But if I'm so compassionate and accepting and considerate, then every time I go and get in the bath, it would be a fucking shithole, wouldn't it? If I'm accepting of everything, if I don't judge anybody, if I don't hold anybody to account, if I don't point out the wrong in people, then what happens? You carry the weight of that. Everywhere you go, I ain't the sort of person that's going to be doing that. I'm the sort of person that's going to be exercising courtesy and respect to everybody I meet. And when they don't return that to me, then I've got something to say about it. And so, the thing with the shadow, how easily it is to breach somebody's fortress. All you have to do is just watch them for a while. Be in their vicinity for a while. And as a psychoanalyst, or just an everyday sort of thinker, you'll make certain observations. We've all lived with people, we've all made these observations, so you don't have to be a psychoanalyst to do it. The psychoanalysis extends to the things I'm talking about, i.e. the shadow, and how you will affect somebody. So simply like that. And the reason why I'm not too keen on my fellow man is because they won't reason that. They won't want to rationalise it, they won't want to accept it. When the biggest brains of the planet have said explicitly, the last thing anybody wants to do is to look at their own shadow, then you can see it ain't no easy task. And you can see that if you do broach people on certain things and breach their fortress just a little, you ain't going to be flavour of the month, are you? And what's going to happen is they're going to be quickly patching up where you've breached, and they're going to be on guard to that. They're going to be very, very observant. And there's going to be an atmosphere when you're around them because they're on red alert. They've got all the sentries all the way around the fortress. Which way is he going to come? Because you came unexpectedly. They never knew that that was a weakness in their fortress. And now they're wondering what other weaknesses are pertaining to their fortress. And they're making certain realisations that I, as an exterior force, have the potential to breach their flimsy fortress from any given angle I should so choose. And so that's when then so-called associates or so-called friends will avoid you like the plague. They would rather avoid you. If you've known them, you could have known them a long time. Could have been a lover. But they would rather sever that relationship than admit that they're wrong and look in at their shit and say, oh, shit, yeah, I'm sorry, mate. I'm a lazy bastard, really. You know, I come from a broken family. My parents never instilled in me the necessity to be respectful to other people. I lived in bedsits all my life, and I just thought, fuck it, because I was angry at the world, and that became a trait of mine, and now it's difficult to shed. How many people are going to be thinking like that? Not many. But if you can get people to say, oh, I'm sorry about that, I'll try not to do it. And if they do it again, say, you've done it again? Really? Damn, I'm really sorry, mate, I'm really sorry. And they'll go and make amends. Okay. They're learning then, aren't they? They're making certain acceptances about themselves. Lots of these things take time. You can't all of a sudden take impeccable care of yourself and be impeccably considerate to other people if you haven't had this programming for the better part of your life. And so, what I have an issue with is that people don't look at themselves. They only look at you. They can point out your faults. They can point out all of your shit. But then when you point out their shit, ow! Right, I'm going to point out double of your shit now. Instead of accepting your shit, hang on, you accept your shit, I'll accept my shit. Then it's equal, isn't it? You don't have to do more towards be on top, because that's the road to ruin, because then I'm going to do more, the other person's going to do more. But if we look at what the observations of people are about us, and we ask ourselves, is that true? Jeepers, yeah. I'm always leaving a dirty sink. In actual fact, I've never cleaned a sink in my life. Don't really intend to. But if I'm living with one other person, then if I don't clean it, it's okay for me if I'm living on my own if I don't clean it. It's my shit. If I want to live in shit, that's my prerogative. But if I'm living with somebody else, I've got to consider somebody else, yeah? And so this is the whole thing. People are invariably inconsiderate. And the last thing they want to do is to evolve. You know, in the old days, in Victorian days, there used to be such things called finishing schools for the well-to-do. They would send their daughters to finishing schools. And in these finishing schools, they would learn all about how to treat a man and how to make a home and how to carry out all of the duties that one would be expected to carry out when you marry into gentry. Because if you're born of gentry, then in the old days it was the man that was important and the woman was always very secondary. And so the woman had to have impeccable manners, and invariably they would always be versed in the arts. They would play the violin, they would play the piano, they would paint, they would read poetry, they would be expected to be educated and all these sort of things, because that was the etiquette of the time. I think we could do with a little bit of that now, don't you? And so this sprung to mind when I was in the gym. I went in the gym and all of the members of staff, there's about a dozen, male and female, the trainers, personal trainers, and I'm on good terms with 90% of them. There's a couple that are a little bit reserved, the women, where we don't have anything in common, but all the guys, it's all like the big matey handshake and what's happening and what you're training today and like talking about this and talking about that, and they even engage me with football, lo and behold. And I speak a little bit to them about football, but it's not about who kicked this fucking ball here and there. It's about other things. It's about the corruption and the human farming and this sort of thing, a perspective that they haven't looked at, you know. And so I walk out the gym and I think about then how people think about me on my site, and how in the past there's been numerous people who have took objection to me. But what really have they took objection to? And this is why I've always maintained it doesn't matter how venomous you want to be towards me. I'm as free as a bird. And I know that you can't stick anything on me because I've looked at my shit. And if I've got shit and if I'm a certain way, like I'm bolshy, I'm arrogant, I'm so opinionated and all these sort of things, well, that's me. That's the variety of person I am, and I'm happy with that, and I don't see any reason why I should change it because a few are not happy with it, being confronted, or feel like they're being confronted. Goodness me, when I put my videos up for the world, people take it personally. You're this and you're that. And hang on, I think you better look at your shadow, mate. What have I done? Have I made manifest inside your head somehow? I have, haven't I? And now, you know, you close your eyes and you go to sleep and you wake up and all of a sudden Aaron's there. And he said these nasty things that I don't like. What did he say? Did he say that you've got shit that you've not looked at? You see? And then they'll have a fury of venom before they go away because they can't stand any more of that. They can't stand me looking into their psyche. Even when they're on the other side of the world and on the computer, I'm talking to them and they know it. Their shadow's going, fucking hiding behind everything. But there's a little voice in there and it says, oi, when are you gonna look at me? When are you gonna get some balls? And turn around and look at me. This dark, shadowy character that's been a part of you for most of your life. When are you going to get some balls and man up? We can carry this across to dreams. If you have a dream and you end up running and you end up terrified and you end up waking up because you're terrified, it's the same thing. You're terrified of your shadow. Because that is your shadow. Shit in dreams is your shadow. When you're in an astral projection, like certain people, some of you may know, where a scarecrow's coming to get them, an archon's coming to get them, and on a DMT trip there's all fucking demons trying to get them. Never experienced it. Never. Why? Because I've looked at my stuff and I ain't got any of that in here. It's all been set free. I've looked at them and I've gone, oh, you mean, nasty, evil, devilish creature. Come here. Give us a hug. Give him a hug. Listen, mate, you served me in my ignorance, but now you're not serving me. So, I'll ask you, please, can you go and take residence in somebody else's psyche? Because I'm flushing out all that negative stuff. You see? And so, if you don't have nightmares, if you don't have bad experiences on psychedelics and astral projections and all this sort of thing, then what I do, I look at that and I go, I've heard so many people talking about bad trips and nightmares and horrors and this, that and the other. And I'm like, why haven't I had one of those? And then when you look a little bit deeper, and it's kind of like, well, because you've resolved things, Aaron. You've become buddies with your shadow. In actual fact, there is no shadow anymore. You've brought him into the light. I've done videos in the past where I'm walking along with a camera and the shadow is on the ground. And I've made an analogy. I'm saying, look people, you've got to befriend this thing down here. Because this thing down here knows every single thing about you. It is always with you. There is no way that you can deny you have a shadow. When the sun's not shining and you're in a darkened room, you can't see the shadow. And that's what most of your life is like. Invariably, you've blocked out the sunlight from casting a shadow. You see? But when you let the sunlight in, beaming in, then you can see the shadow as clear as day. Then you go, aha! There you are! Right, let's sit down and let's talk. So, did this mean anything to anybody? No comments as usual. Is this something that I have to reconcile with myself? That I'm talking to myself? Because nobody wants to acknowledge any of the things I'm saying. It's too fucking wacky, it's too far out, it's too complicated. It's obviously too something. Because when I look on Rachel's channel, millions of people, oh, you're so nice, Rachel, oh, you're so kind, Rachel. Everybody wants to hear beautiful things. And Rachel knows this. This is why she does beautiful videos. Because it gives her something. I'm not interested in giving you all this facade about beauty. I can tell you where beauty is. It's deep inside here, underneath your shadow and shit. That's where it is. People don't want to hear that. Beauty is strive and determination and grit and sweat and blood. It's at the end of that. It ain't on a fucking plate for you pussies. You got to earn it. When you climb a mountain and you experience the hardship of that, when you strive in business and you experience the hardship in that, when you hold on to a relationship through thick and thin and you experience the hardship in that, that's when you find the beauty and the love and anything that's worthwhile. When people give it you, oh, nicely, telling you how fucking great you are, that ain't worth a wank, people. Am I upsetting you now? Good! Because if you stick around, you'll learn something. If you don't like it, you'll fuck off. Have a great day. Whatever you do, wherever you are.